What do you think was the key difference that this time made Legends into a success?
I think the number one thing is that I had much more experience from my failure, because many of the times we tend to write off the failure,
Yeah.
but the failure is what actually brings you through from a learning experience.
Yeah.
Because that experience that you have, if you're going to fail with the same thing and basically repeat that same failure, then the problem is on you.
I'm glad you mentioned the aspect again of, you told the story of your former employees opening up across the street, right? Obviously, that's always a challenge. And as you mentioned, there's constant challenges that come up over the time. And that's just the nature of business itself. If you were to go back and say, what was that pivotal moment that changed Legends into what you see today, what would that be?
The pivotal moment that changed Legends as to what it is today was not compromising on your values. And I say not compromising on because many of the times as we start businesses and we go about, there's so many things that comes across your way and you're like, you know what, maybe I should take a shortcut here. Okay, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. But if you understand exactly what values do you want to implement within your business, how do you want your company, what do you want your company to stand for? Because your customer can only see that if you are able to stand by it. And just to give an example, Ebrahim, so we have a value within our company where we don't compromise on our belief system. We stand on something and we say, you know what, this is what we believe in. So at any given store, it doesn't matter in which store it is or a training center, wherever it is, this is who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And we stand on that. And I think many of the times businesses tend to go from if the wind comes and blows you this way, then you need to go this way. If this happens, then you go this way. But just having that belief system, this is my value. I firmly believe in my creator. I firmly believe that he is the one that gives me the ability to create wealth. I firmly believe that we are here, we are called to serve others, do unto others if you want them to do unto you. And you stand on this irregardless of how difficult it might seem, irregardless of what you might face, that you still stand on those values. Because the world is full with challenges. The world can direct you in paths that you like, okay, how do I find myself? How do I find myself being able to be in these situations? And just a typical example, like we decide we don't want to be associated with any alcohol brand. Mm-hmm. We don't want to be associated with any alcohol brand. It's not the fact that that we just isolating ourselves, but it's what our values actually determine. You understand? So if your values streamline you, even though these guys come and say here's a paycheck of X amount, would you be able to compromise on your values? You have to stand upon it.
No, that's very, that's very, very important. And I think that, in all honesty, if you were to say that really is the difference maker. And you hear about these stories all the time. But I think I commend you firstly for doing that, because I think it's so important to hold that standard and hold those values. So, I'm very interested in now this shift in perspective, right? So as you mentioned, your goal was to open up 5 branches in 5 years. Now, the question that I had, and I'm very interested to see this, so obviously now there has to become a slight change of mindset here, right? Because now you're not Sheldon the Barber anymore. Now you are Sheldon the Legends brand, right? How did you make that transition, and how was that? I'm sure they must have been very challenging to change that mindset from, okay, I need to give the best service as a barber, as opposed to now my brand needs to make sure they're giving the best service to the customers.
Yes, of course. I think that's one of the things where entrepreneurs find it difficult to do.
Yes.
And a simple format that I implemented from the beginning was that I would never want to be the face of the business. Although I started the business, I'm an entrepreneur of the business, I'm a steward of the business. I want the business to be able to outlive me. And I intentionally, from the beginning, said that I am going to empower the next person to take my place.
Okay.
So if you think about it, as a barber, what you need to do, I mean, I would like to empower somebody to be much more skillful than what I am. As a leader, as a supervisor of a store, I want somebody to be much more better in how I manage my staff. As as a as a training facilitator or as a person that looks after many stores, I want to upskill my team in order for them to be able to take on those positions. So I'm constantly looking at ways in terms of how I can mentor my team. Why? Because I believe that leadership, if you think about leadership, it's much more about taking the baton and not holding on to it, but saying, you know what, I'm going to pass it over to the next person. So even if Sheldon is not a CEO next year, if Sheldon is able to successfully empower the next person to become the CEO of this business, then I have done a good job. Because many of the times we think about it, that it's just about me, but it's about what are you trying to build that will outlive you. And businesses is built on systems. If you're able to build a solid systems within your business, and even when you're not there, because we know this happens so many times, Ebrahim, that when you leave the shop and you come back and you're like, oh, what happened? I mean, like, there's things just fall apart.
Yeah.
Things just go haywire. But if you leave the shop and the shop does much better with the new manager that you have placed, then it says that what you have done is not being envious on that manager, but it's saying, you know what, you have done a great job being able to empower that person to take your place. And many of the times we're scared to let go. We're scared to just, you know what, I am so afraid that this person is going to take my customers. I'm so afraid that this person is going to take all my employees and run away with my employees.
Yeah.
I'm so afraid that this person is going to cook my business. But it's, if we operate in that scarcity or fear mindset, we will never see success. We will never see what we're actually truly capable of achieving. And that's the reason why when you hear the number of the stores and you say 78 stores, how is it possible? How are you able to do this? It's not just me, myself. It's our whole team collectively that's working behind the scenes to make this possible.
I'm very happy you said that, because it's that difference. I'm sure you've seen this debate of boss versus leader. You know, the boss is going to say, I did this, I did that, where the leader is going to say, similar to what you just said, my team has accomplished this. And further to that, I think I read it was a LinkedIn post actually, now that we're talking about LinkedIn, that somebody said that the key to a successful CEO is a CEO that has the least amount of jobs, right? Because a lot of times, as you mentioned, as you're growing in a business, so you are founder, you doing everything.
Yes.
As you grow, there is going to be a time where you need to pass on certain things, but as you mentioned, it's very difficult. Certain people just can't relinquish that control for some reason or the other.
That's true.
But it truly is a mark of a great CEO and a great leader that you are able to create these different roles and have the least amount of responsibilities on yourself. Obviously,
yourself,
there's
definitely.
other responsibilities that come up. But in terms of, actual operations, you're taking that step back. And as you said, grooming that next person that's going to take over.
Yeah, no, I think about it. Just think about it like this, Mohammed. I mean, like, you and I come from a corporate background, and how it works in corporate is that you have your boss basically sitting on top, and basically your boss tells everyone what to do and when to do things. They need us to deliver it, you understand? So I called it basically this triangle effect where the boss sits here, up here, and this boss demands and commands authority, you understand? And I think this is something that you see quite often within our spaces or in our corporates, whichever place you go to. So you talk about the boss. That's the boss right there. You understand? So now you have people being unhappy because they just doing what they're supposed to do.
Yes.
And I intentionally from the beginning said in this business that I would like to sit at the bottom. So you have the triangles upside down, and it's like okay, how is Sheldon on a day-to-day basis finding out from his team, his exco team, his support team, how am I able to assist you to do your work better? How am I able to make your life easier? How am I able to support you in any way necessary? And once we start changing our mindset and changing that type of authority, that it's not just centered around me and my demands, but it's what my team actually wants to achieve in order for them to grow the business, then your outcome will definitely be different, because now you're operating from a servant leader point of view.
No, that's brilliant. I fully agree with that. Simon Sinek actually mentioned that one of the key lessons he learned was from a story from Nelson Mandela. And they asked Nelson Mandela, what made you such a great leader? And Nelson Mandela said it was something that he learned from his father, was that the leader is the person that speaks last. And similar to what you said, if the leader goes or the boss goes into the meeting and says, okay, guys, what's wrong with the company? I think this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. He's already setting the tone that, listen, this is what I think. Do you guys agree with me? But where you have a leader going in and saying, okay, guys, what's wrong with the company? And then he sits down and he listens to what everybody has to say. And he's the last person to speak. And he goes, you know what? I agree with you, or this is what I think. Then the employees are feeling much more empowered and they buying into the situation as well. So similar to what you said, what can we do for you? And if you had a boss that coming in to say, okay, what do you guys need from me? I think I should be doing this, this, and this. You're not really asking them. You're sort of just getting them to validate your ideas.
Your ideas,
But by getting there and just sitting back and saying, okay, guys, what do I need to do for you? Sitting back, listening to everything, and then giving your input. That just makes the world of a difference.
And that's when you talk about empowering. So now you're empowering your team. You're actually looking at how you're able to mentor them to make the right decisions, because they mustn't operate on a matter of fear, but they must operate on a matter of, you know what, I have the backing from my superior to actually make these decisions within my business. And many of the times we're afraid that, and it goes back to just letting go and let your people actually, even if your people fail, walk with them the journey. So it's fine. We're going to go through this failure together. You understand? Don't be the boss that, or basically the leader that says, you know what, because I told you so, now you have to. No. I mean, like, go walk through the journey with them, and as long as there's lessons to be learned along the journey, and that's what's important.
And I think also from the aspect of everybody wants to grow, right? So and you mentioned that a lot of times people will look at it and say, oh, you know what, I don't want this person to get so big, they might take my customers away. But not realizing that by trying to hold down that person because you are scared of something, you're going to inevitably probably lead to them leaving and taking your customers away. But if you create that growth for them in your environment and say, look, sky is the limit, I just want to be with you all the way, nobody's going to want to leave that guy and take away all these customers. They're going to want to grow next to Sheldon and saying, you know what, we're going to make this even better, but I'm going to be next to you on the step of the way.
And that's so important. That's so important. And many of the times we just tend to forget it. I mean, we tend to forget that your mission on this earth is not toward anything. You understand? Your mission. So it's quite interesting. I visited a friend of mine, and he has this massive factory, and I asked him, what does he find so much more important than anything else? And basically, he takes his suit, so he wears this expensive suit, he throws it on the floor, he takes his watch off, he says, all of these things I'm going to leave behind. But one thing that I can tell you, how I made a person feel about themselves is going to live forever. And how important is that? How important is how we live in our lives to want to make an impression on the next person, not by the material things that we possess, but by the lives that we touch. I believe that if everyone can live our lives, not for material things, but for genuinely want to impact people's lives, then we found ourselves in a position where impact is valid. And that's the reason why we always talk about great leaders that has walked the face of the earth, whether it is Mahatma Gandhi, whether it is Nelson Mandela. All of these leaders selflessly gave of themselves for other people. And that is the type of leaders that we should aspire to want to become. Because if we leave this earth, we leave everything behind.
Yeah, very true. No, I completely agree. It's a legacy, right? And if you look at a legacy, is one of the most important things. Whether it's the legacy we leave behind for our children in the way we behave, whether it's the legacy you leave behind with your brand. Completely agree. I mean, you don't want anybody saying, hey, you know, Legends Barbershop, that was the place that opened up a couple of hundred stores and it made this much. You want people to be saying, you know what, Legends, every time I walked in there, the barber greeted me by my name. That was one of the best places to go. You got the best service. It was always such a laugh. You know, I had a great time. Yes, the success is very, very important, but I think it's the opposite way around, right? The success doesn't drive the great service. The service drives the success.
And just to share with you quickly, I mean, like, we have a training development academy. So so wherever we have stores, we have training centers, and we upskill the youngsters from the communities. So it doesn't matter if you have matric or if you don't have any qualifications, if you know how to cut hair or not, we upskill these youngsters for free. So we do this as a matter of unearthing what we're currently facing within our country. We're currently facing a crisis where 6 or 7 out of 10 youth are unemployed and they don't have jobs. So the one thing that gives me much more fulfilling than anything else is being able to walk into the training centers and realizing that the work that we're doing is impacting the lives of that youngster that is looking for an opportunity to have hope, that is going to get either a skill and is going to get employed through this ecosystem. And I was reading a testimony the other day of somebody that commented on one of my posts and said, you know, the one thing that I can genuinely say without a doubt is that the training center has changed my daughter's life. And this is the comment that she shared. She said, the training center has changed my daughter's life, not only from a skill set point of view, because she learned the skill, she understands what it is, but to holistic impact her life through the work that we do in the training center. Say that made her a good lady for our society. Because now if you think about it, majority of these people that we upskilling come from different communities. They come from, I mean like you see the communities where they come from. But if we have a place where they are able to holistically change their lives, now impact is valid. Now we say, okay, now we are totally making a difference, not by force, but by a matter of one kid at a time. And I mean, if it's just for that one child that says, you know what, I'm willing to take on this journey, that's more than enough for me.
No, I love that. Thank you. That's brilliant. Could really commend you and your team for doing that. And it's like what I mentioned on the podcast here. I mean, you know, that's similar to how you mentioned this, and I say it a lot, so apologies for repeating myself. But this is my passion product, and I look at it the same way. In all honesty, if we can inspire one viewer, you know, one viewer that listens to Sheldon's story and impacted by that and makes that change in their life, then this would have been this would have been worth it.
Definitely.
So, completely agree.
Definitely.
So the first question is, what message would you like people to take away from our chat today?
The first message I would like people to take away from this conversation that we had, that success without impact is in vain. Impact is what we all should strive for. Whether we make impact on people's lives through the work that we do, it all should stem towards serving the next person.
No, brilliant. Fully agree with that. I think, going back to that, I think it also comes to your definition of success. I think a lot of people struggle with that. What is the definition of success? And I think for a lot of people, it's yes, you know what, I want to drive this car or wear the brand, as you mentioned. But I think having that definition or having that sort of mindset is that my success is dependent on how I impact people. That's where the money is, really.
And it's, for me personally, Ebrahim, I mean, there's, we, our goals have shifted.
Yeah, naturally.
So in the beginning of the conversation, I told you that my goal was to open 5 stores. Then I wanted to open 10 stores. Then I wanted to open 50 stores.
Mhm.
So your goals is always shifting, and you're achieving these goals, and you're achieving this. But to tell you the honest truth, I don't focus much more on the number of shops that I open, much more than the lives that I'm impacting. Because the lives that I'm impacting outweighs my personal goals that I have for myself.
Oh, brilliant. And in saying that, like, I fully believe that that is what drives success. So in all honesty, I mean, as we said, congratulations on all the success that you've had. But in all honesty, I have this belief system that that is the reason for the success.
Thank
You
you.
see most of these really big businesses, and you see the underlying to that is a lot of people, entrepreneurs that are focused more on uplifting other people. And as you mentioned, and very spiritual, you have your belief set, but I honestly believe that God
Yes.
looks at that, and that's the difference.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No,
Thanks a
my
lot.
pleasure. This one I always found very interesting. So, you know, in a job interview, you always get that question, where do you see yourself in 10 years, right? So I'm going to flip that around, and I'm going to say, 10 years ago, how would you have answered that question? And looking back at where you are today, how do you feel about your situation right now?
I think 10 years ago, I felt that I was still immature.
Mhm.
I felt that you'd make these metrics, and whether these metrics were for personal gain, for business gain, for things that you'd make these metrics based on all of these things, but not realizing that those metrics will just vanish, and your main objective was to, how am I able to build something that will outlive me?
Mhm.
And when I say this, it's a matter of, am I able to build into people's lives that will support this vision, that, and remind them that why we started what we started. And I think I'm now at this journey where like, for example, like, just to share with you one of the companies that we started. So we started our own hair clipper company,
Mhm.
which is called the Faith Company. And a couple of years ago, I was approached by, it was on Metro FM. So this lady called me and she was like, Sheldon, there's a situation that's currently happening within our communities, and a lot of customers are getting bumps on their head, and it became quite viral, and everything was pointing towards that barber that's cutting hair on the side of the road. And she asked me this question, and she said, so what do you think? Should all customers start cutting hair at Legends? And I said, no. And she said, okay, so what should we do? So I asked her to put herself in that barber's position that's cutting on the side of the road with the limited resources that he has. What is that barber's objective for that day? He's trying to make enough money so he can feed his family by the end of the day. Let's call it, maybe he makes a 60 bucks or something like that.
Mhm.
Will that barber have money to buy new equipment, to buy sterilizers, to buy all of these things that will actually help him? No. And now I think that conversation sparked something with me to want to make a difference. So then I went on this journey to develop hair clippers. And I decided that I'm going to introduce this hair clippers within the market. But the main mission of this hair clipper was to help that barber that's cutting on the side of the road. So for every 10 clippers sold, 1 pack is donated to that barber that's on the side of the road. So every week you see Sheldon going out to those barbers and delivering those clippers and giving them, not only giving them a tool that will help them on their journey, but also giving them some good advice as to say, you know what, I've been where you are, and you can also build your business like a Sheldon one day. You can also scale your business and be like a Sheldon one day. And I think that for me has been my greatest, I would say, one of the greatest things that I personally took on, because now I'm helping that person that didn't have any hope, that didn't have any future, but because somebody thought of him, he is able to build his business.
No, that's excellent. Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, amazing. I love, in all honesty, it's something you don't see very often, which is sad. It's the truth. But I mean, I love the aspect, and your view is 100% correct in the aspect of if we can uplift other people, or if rather put it the other side, if we are not uplifting other people, then what are we really doing here? And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. I think the world is just so busy these days, and everybody's just focused on, oh yeah, you know what, we have bills to pay, we have this, we need that, I need to grow this amount, need to satisfy my shareholders. But we're not looking at the other thing. And I think that's the most important thing, is the impact that, like you said, legacy is what we're leaving behind. We're not going to leave behind anything other than that. So commend you, honestly, that's brilliant. Well done on doing that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We have a bit of a tradition on the show where the last guest leaves a question for the next guest,
Yes.
not knowing what the next guest does or anything about them. And the question that was left for you was, what is one lesson that you've told yourself, or one message that you've told yourself in private that has had a profound impact on your life and career, throughout the time?
What is one?
Lesson or message
Yes.
that you told yourself in private?
Yes. So one message I told myself in private was, there's a very famous verse in the Bible that says that I can do all things to Christ who give me strength. And this comes from Philippians 4 verse 13. So I constantly repeat those words, especially when I go, maybe it's on public speaking, or maybe when I do certain things where I feel afraid. And that words that says I can do all things just reignites in me the need to want to be able to do it beyond human understanding. Because if I'm thinking about it, sometimes it's out of my capacity. But with God on my side, I'm able to achieve everything that I set my mind towards. So yes, that's a message that I constantly tell myself in private, which I echo in public.
Sheldon, I can't thank you so much for, Sheldon, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. It's been such a phenomenal chat with you. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And in all honesty, one of the things I absolutely love about doing these interviews is that I personally learn so much from them. So, got a good lesson in entrepreneurship today from you. But, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this chat. And on behalf of the listeners, thank you for being here with us. But more importantly, thank you for creating this impact, as you mentioned, amongst the communities. And I can say, just looking forward to seeing where you take this business and this brand to in the future. And we're going to enjoy it every step of the way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks a lot for having the show, Ebrahim.
No, it's our absolute pleasure. All right, that's our show. Brilliant lessons we learned from Sheldon today. But I think the most important one is the legacy we leave behind and the impact we have on the future generations. My name is Ebrahim Tayob, and you're watching Chat EbT. Please join us again next time.